Hi, Peter Sidgreaves. Welcome back. How are you? Happy New Year to you as well. We've got an election coming up this year. And how's your day been so far?
Yeah, hi Stephen, mate. I'm very well. Very busy, but that's okay. Yeah, we have a federal election coming up this year, but that doesn't really concern me greatly. It's more about looking after my constituents and the Camden electorate, and that's what's important to me. And yes, the federal election will be a bit of a distraction, but hopefully we can get a government back in, re-elected, where all levels of government, at least in the Camden area, can work together to get better outcomes for the residents of Camden.
We had a problem with Transport Sydney trains. Dominic Perrottet was blaming the Labor government when they had that whole strike 2 weeks ago. We've had a lot of floods coming in New South Wales. My place is flooded. I can't even mow the lawn, Peter.
Yep.
Um, Prime Minister Scott Morrison's put that order in for the nuclear submarines as well. But there's been a lot of problems with Campbelltown Hospital. So overpopulated. My grandma had to go in 5 hours. We had to wait. And I was just really pissed off.
Yeah, no, I think you expect to be. So, look, I'll answer Campbelltown Hospital first and work my way backwards. But
Mhm.
certainly, we're out there probably 3 or 4 weeks ago announcing the new pathology unit that was opened,
Mhm.
and that's part of an $800 million investment that's been put into Campbelltown Hospital. Now, I know that the clinical services building will be completed, I think, if I'm right. Look, it's coming up. I think it's mid-year, but end of the year, but I can't actually recall. But that will be completed, and that'll add a lot of additional facilities to Campbelltown Hospital. And I think from memory, we've put 700 million in for Liverpool Hospital as well. So I think that we are definitely getting the service out in Southwest Sydney through the local health district and the associated hospitals. So that one, yeah, I completely understand that, but I would say that we are certainly well and truly on the way to providing greater capacity. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with regards to the floods, yes, absolutely. I'm not sure exactly where you live, but I know that Camden, a lot of people in Camden have been flooded, particularly the older parts of Camden, the historical town of Camden, and the Nepean. Any properties around the Nepean are well and truly getting flooded. My own personal property, while not flooded, we certainly have my land slopes slightly from uphill to downhill, and and we've got a lot of water that's ending up in the on the side of the property on the lower side. And so it's been heavy rain in Camden. Many people directly impacted, others indirectly impacted, particularly when Cowpasture Bridge goes down and the traffic going in and out of Camden is very difficult, limited to MacArthur Bridge. But certainly those victims, whether they be in Camden, or in the Hawkesbury Valley, or even up in the Northern Rivers, my heartfelt sympathy goes out to each one of those. And certainly anybody in Camden can contact me directly, and I'll provide as much assistance to them that I can. And then
Yeah.
going back to the
Mhm.
transport matter.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was an
So I'll just
interesting
make a
one.
brief well, it is interesting. I'll make a brief comment on certainly none of these negotiations had to do with me. I wasn't involved in them, but there seems to be a conflicting story from one side, the government, and from the opposition, whether or not not the rail shutdown was caused by the unions, or whether or not it was caused as a result of miscommunication within the government. But certainly, it appears strange to me that when it occurred was the first day back for university is one example, and for other certain events that happened on that. But I'll make no further comment on that. I wasn't directly involved in any of the discussions. Bit like a spectator on this one. Yes, it's been discussed in question time and whatnot, but at this point in time, there doesn't seem to be any definitive answer on what did cause it, who was responsible. But at the end of the day, as the government, it's our responsibility to keep trains on the tracks and keep them moving, but only when it's safe to do so.
Yeah, I had Mike Freelander back on the show again, Peter. We spoke about Campbelltown Hospital. It's very overpopulated and it's very understressed.
No, I would certainly agree with that, particularly with the growth that Camden alone has, but the Macarthur region as a whole. That's true. But as I said to you, we've invested $800 million into it to increase capacity, increase the number of services that we're providing, and importantly, an upgrade to emergency and upgrade to beds. So let's hope, because as I said, we've already just opened the new pathology unit, and there'll be more openings coming up in the next 12 months. So they will also, they'll be staffed. So, all I can say is that from a state government point of view, we're certainly building the infrastructure, and then now we're up to providing the services.
Yeah, hopefully we can improve our public hospital systems, Peter. Like, I was reading in the Sydney Morning Herald today about private health insurances are just costing people so much money with the
Yeah,
gap
no,
fees.
they are, and there's certainly a place for private health. I'm a believer in that. I've got private health coverage myself, so I certainly am fully aware about the premiums that we pay on those. But it's up to each individual and their families to determine whether it's better for them or whether it's not. So we always have Medicare, but at the end of the day, there are benefits that private health, and this is my personal view, with 4 daughters, for example, that private health insurance does provide value in my own unique situation.
Have you been happy with the services you've received with private health insurance?
Look, certainly I have. So I've got, as I said, a wife and 4 daughters, and in terms of things such as dental, in terms of things such as optometry and other matters. So I've also orthodontist fees and all that. Yes, we certainly get value out of it, but as I say, it's not necessarily the case for everybody.
It is very expensive, Peter, and not everyone can afford it as well.
No, that's true.
That's why I use Medicare. I was always told I'm too young and healthy for private health insurance, but each to their own, I guess.
Yeah, it is, and it's exactly what it is. It's a case of each to their own. But we'll always strive to improve not only the infrastructure but the actual capacity and the services that our public health hospitals are providing to residents of Camden and Macarthur region.
Now, there's a war that's broken out in Ukraine at the moment. Scott Morrison decided to help out with that. That's an interesting one. Australia will get involved with the situation in Ukraine.
Yeah, look, again, I'm only from a spectator point of view. I mean, that's a matter for the federal government. But my general view on is that we have a defence force, and that as countries such as Australia and other countries who have the ability to protect those that don't have the ability to protect themselves, I think that's actually absolutely one of the initiatives that we could take as a country. As a country, as a leader, we can help those countries that can't help themselves. And so I'm not advocating for war, but I think sometimes more action than sanctions need to be done. But I'm not an expert in that area by any means. I'm just a spectator like everybody else watching the news in disbelief.
Yeah, Sky News Australia talks a lot about. There's the Bolt report that I'll listen to occasionally, and Paul Murray, Sherry as well. I mean, they go right in depth about all this stuff. Pauline Hanson's on Sky News Australia. Every now and again, I'll listen to it, but I quite enjoy reading the Sydney Morning Herald as well. I subscribe to it now.
Yeah, no. So I kind of, to get the most accurate information that I can, I tend to have a broad spectrum of media that I go to, including, for example, the ABC. Occasionally I go to Sky, but whether it be the Daily Telegraph or the Sydney Morning Herald, I kind of try to keep abreast of most things from a wider spectrum of views. So.
And if Scott Morrison was to be re-elected for Prime Minister, do you think there'd be more changes? Because it's not been easy to be a Prime Minister in a pandemic as well. I know Anthony Albanese is making all these promises, but I don't know. Hard to say.
Yep. No, look, it is hard to say. Look, I would just say that, we're talking about a once in a generation if not more, of a pandemic that we probably haven't seen the likes of in terms of the economic impact, since the Great Depression. So it is very hard. But I would say certainly as a state government, if I can comment on that, we've put in $41 billion or thereabouts into COVID alone. So that is a big chunk of the budget. But these are things that are necessary to keep our own citizens, keep them safe, keep them well. So, we need to get businesses, re-established, help them grow, right, so they can employ more people. So the more people that are employed, that cycle goes around. They spend in the local economy, they spend in the state economy and the national economy, and that creates more jobs. So it's something that's really important, as well as keeping people ultimately safe. We actually need to also kickstart the economy. We've done that in recent times through COVID. And when we come out of COVID and within a number of months, 6 months, we're actually, in terms of a jobs perspective, we've been ahead of where we were. So that's the kind of rebound that we're actually working on as we speak. And so far, those indicators are positive. So look, it's going to be really hard for any level of government. And that includes, local government. So you look at Camden Council and others, they put significant funds into, lots of their local projects with regards to trying to keep the community safe and to kind of, generate production around the area. So, it's important. It's about keeping people in jobs. It's that livelihood. So it's certainly a very difficult time for all levels of government.
It is, especially economically as well. But let's talk about the issue of climate change too, Peter.
Yep.
It's getting hotter and hotter every year. But if we can plant more trees, recycle more plastic, we want to cool the earth down, because it's hitting 50 degrees in Penrith.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and all on board with that. So I know that as a state government, we've got a commitment, not only a commitment to net zero by 2050, but we've got a lot of programs and policies that are going in to assist in that area in terms of cooling the environment. I would be a big advocate for a lot of these housing diversity, smaller properties, to be large enough to plant a tree in, a backyard large enough to plant a tree in. But look, there's so many the policies that the state government are actually introducing that will help the government, actually the New South Wales government, actually deliver on that commitment. And there's milestones along the way, so you can monitor that, you can track that, and to ensure that we're on target. And the electric vehicles bill, that was an example of how one example of many of how we plan to actually achieve it. It's not just about saying it, it's not a statement. We have a plan on actually delivering it.
And we've had an inflation problem, I think this year, with housing prices and rental prices going up so much. This is happening all across Australia, United States. Employees are struggling to pay their rent, Peter.
Yeah, well, certainly we've had rent relief packages in place during COVID throughout the whole time. Now, my understanding is that is still continuing. So, and that's one thing that we can be doing. But this is why, particularly whether you're renting or whether you're paying off a mortgage, that we need to keep people in jobs. If they're in jobs, they will have some ability to service that rent or service that mortgage. But yes, absolutely acknowledge that housing prices are increasing, and within time, I wouldn't be able to tell you how long that'll be, but within time, you'd hope they'd regulate the housing market out with both increase in supply, which I don't advocate in certain areas of Camden, where we have the beautiful rural and rural vistas and whatnot. I'd certainly not advocate it outside the Southwest Growth Area, but there are other growth areas designated where that can occur and is occurring.
Yeah, this is the inflation problem we're having in the world right now. Especially food prices have gone up a lot too. I could tell you, I went to Hungry Jack's on the weekend, and the burgers and the fries got smaller. I was cranky.
Did they? Okay. I haven't visited there for a while, but it's a bit like go ahead.
I'd rather go to a takeaway shop, Peter. Keep a small business going.
No, that's exactly right. So, I'd always, not only do I practice that, but I would actually always advocate that to the community, is
Mm,
that you shop local and keep your local economy, ticking over. And that is going to the small businesses. Whether or not you're getting takeout or whatever you're doing, if you're going shopping, go and support the local businesses.
mm,
Um, you know, so there may be the need from time to time to go and support those large multinational companies. But at the same time, don't forget your local community,
mm.
and that helps your actual local community keep turning over, creating more jobs for them, and more jobs closer to home, which is always much better for families.
Mm. So I don't know where this war's going to be in Ukraine, Peter. If Australia will have to go, I don't know why Vladimir Putin decided to start it. But this Ukraine problem was going for before I was born over that
Yeah,
land.
look, it's you look back in history, even in recent history, between Crimea and Georgia,
Mm,
kind of like Russia's been taking this, trying to reclaim land. I think if you could call it that. As I say, I'm certainly not an expert, but um, you know, we need to actually protect those vulnerable countries, and they're recognised vulnerable countries. In my view, that those that have the both the funding and the any help that can be provided, whether it be through medical means, taking in residents, for example, from the Ukraine, or whether it be taking some form of military action.
mm,
I see that as our role. This is myself as a personal view. I see that as the role of countries like Australia.
mhm,
While I wouldn't advocate for war, I do advocate for protecting those countries that are vulnerable to countries, as we're seeing at the moment. Russia is invading Ukraine.
mm.
So I think if there's more that we can do to assist them, then I'd be certainly supportive of that.
How do you feel about the nuclear submarine? It's going to take so many years. Would it be better to have an electric submarine, in your
Look,
opinion?
I wouldn't be able to tell you what's in the existing fleet,
Mm,
but what I would say is that I think nuclear, regardless of whether it's on a submarine,
mm,
in terms of any weapon, is always a something to worry about. Um, whether or not that helps us defend our own country more effectively. It's a threat of a nuclear weapon, but you'd like to
mm,
hope that that would never ever be used. So look, it's there are positives and negatives to it, but ultimately at the end of the day, I think whether it's defending our country or whether it's as I say, supporting those less vulnerable, the more vulnerable countries. I think that if we've got the means, and I'm not supporting using nuclear weapons at all, but
mm.
um, it certainly helps protect your own country, in my view. But again, you never want to be pulling the trigger on it.
It's very expensive with taxpayers' money, and this is not going to be ready till 2040, something like
Yeah, look,
that.
again, a federal issue, but again, my personal view is that
Mm,
when you got Russia threatening Ukraine,
mm,
and potentially others, I think we just need to first and foremost defend our own country. And I guess the view would be that the more powerful your weapons become, that you can actually defend your own country. But
mm.
certainly not an expert, just an observer. So.
It's just what I've been reading, Peter. But I'd like to say thanks for coming on the show today. What do you got plans coming up for the federal election? Are you running, or what's happening with you?
I know I'm a member of the state parliament, so
Yeah.
I won't be running for the federal election. But certainly, I'd be in some capacity, or I expect that I'll be supporting our local federal member,
Hmm.
which is Angus Taylor,
Hmm.
and doing what I can to support Angus. I think he's a very good member of parliament, and we have a really good working relationship between Angus, myself, and Teresa Pizzelli, the mayor. And I think while you've got all levels of government, one party, it doesn't matter which party it is, I think you're always going to get far more success, because you can work together to achieve not just federal government goals, not just state government goals. It's actually you deliver on goals that are more important for the actual local community, which is always, in my view, the best way to be supporting the local community. I think if everybody did that, across the board, then we'd be in a much better place.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on today, Peter.
Pleasure always.